Hello, everyone, and welcome to our August webinar for What's New in Health and Safety. My name is Claire Russell. I'm a outbound product manager for our health and safety team. I'm joined today by Shayna and Jordan, who are inbound product managers, and we're really excited to share what we've released in our past August release. So before I begin, I'm just going to safe harbor and cover the safe harbor here. So we might talk a little bit about roadmap. So anything roadmap is forward looking. We do reserve the right to make changes to the roadmap and adjust our scope as we get closer to the release. So that's really only if we cover any of our roadmap, but the majority of our presentation today is going to be focused on current release and what we released in August. And we released a webinar for health and safety that aligns with our quarterly release schedule. So we do have 4 releases every year. And we welcome you to join us back for our future releases. So our next one is going to be in November. But on ServiceNow, we do have our Live on ServiceNow events. And so there are other events that are hosted by ServiceNow and other products. So please continue to join us for those future webinars and 360 exchanges. And then some housekeeping rules. If you haven't joined one of our webinars before, there will be a Q&A after the presentations. We have time to go through any questions that you might have. So make sure that you're putting any of your questions in the Q&A portion. There's the chat, and then there's the Q&A portion. Chat, feel free to put any thoughts that you might have, but if you want a specific question answered, put it in the Q&A. And then feel free to introduce yourself when asking a question. We'd love to know who you are. We always see some familiar faces here, so welcome. So please feel free to introduce yourself. And then this session is going to be recorded and shared on the ServiceNow community forum. It'll also be shared on YouTube. So if you want to watch the recording a little bit later or share it with someone on your team, we always record these sessions for you to have that as a resource. And then finally, at the end, you will be prompted to fill out a survey, and we do appreciate your feedback. Like I said, we host these every quarter, so we'd love to know how we can improve this experience for you when attending our webinars. So for today's agenda, we're going to cover quite a bit, and I'm really excited to share essentially what we've released in August. So first, we'll go through a summary of what's new in August, and then we'll actually cover each feature. So first, we'll cover health and safety case management, our new top-level application. We'll then walk through some of the functionality around inspections that we released, specifically offline inspections. We then will go through our enhancements to JSAs that we made, which are job tasks for JSAs, and then also any additional updates. So we'll walk through live demos of these and some slides for each of them just to give you a full understanding of what we've released for August. All right, so for a summary of what's new in August, we released 3 major features and enhancements. So the first one is health and safety case management, and this is going to be a new top-level application or plugin. So if you are familiar with finding our plugins on store, or you maybe want to update it into your instance, it is going to be under health and safety case management. And what we've built is a dedicated case management for our health and safety teams. And we've provided out-of-the-box categories, so things like general inquiries, training, incident-related leave, and equipment, and health and safety procedures. So the goal of this is, 1, to provide those health and safety teams the ability to enable self-service for their employees. I have a question, I need to ask someone on the health and safety team that question. And as we know, that team can span multiple different users. It can span multiple different roles. So maybe someone on the occupational health side versus the EHS side. For the employee, they might not be super familiar with those different roles or jobs. So we just want to provide them the ability to quickly and easily ask a question and get that response back. That's built using case management. So there's the ability to have SLAs and routing based on like location or case type. So we can cover a little bit about that as we're demoing case. The other part that I wanted to call out about our case management is the ability to actually maintain a return to work from an injury or leave. So things like medical documentation, leave information, and this is going to be that process that happens after that employee has been injured and needs to go out on a leave. So two types of case thoughts, one more of just quick questions, and as well as the other one, more of a longer term case that's going to require a little bit more checking back. Our next feature that we released, and we're very excited about this feature. We got a lot of feedback from our customers asking for this feature, and we've now enabled inspections, which we released in our May release. We've now enabled it to be offline. So those that are in areas of little to no connectivity can now take inspections from their mobile device. And once that connection is reestablished, it will sync and automatically submit those. So thinking of different user types, different employee types, they're not always going to be sitting at their desk taking these inspections, and they're not always going to be in an area with perfect service. And then our last major feature that we'll cover is JSA job tasks. And so we've actually updated our job templates to now have a job register of all jobs in the organization, and you can be very granular with what job tasks employees are completing and actually associate those with hazards or controls. And so this is going to enable employees to create a step-by-step job safety analysis with those hazards and controls associated each step. It's also going to enable your health and safety teams to just manage a register of jobs, and these can be used in other ways like risk assessments and even some of our future roadmap capabilities. So we're very excited about this register that's really going to act as that core system of record for your health and safety teams maintaining job information. And then some additional enhancements here. We'll cover these a little bit more in depth, but wanted to cover them just at a high level so you have a summary. The first one is shareable actions. So now we have the ability to copy an existing corrective action and edit that assignment group or location information. So you can just assign it to different users, and it will just copy that information over and make it easier to share. Our next update is, again, something that has been really asked for by our customers. So again, we're very, very excited about this. It's our body picker. So you may be familiar with our body picker in the health and safety workspace, specifically the injury record. Health and safety agents can go in during that investigation process and managing that injury and select on the body picker where that injury occurred. We've done a few things here. One, we've updated our body picker to be more granular. So he or she has more body parts that you can select and really determine where that injury has occurred. The other update that we've also made to our body picker is enabled it to be on the employee center. So within advanced incident reporting, the employee now can select on that body picker where they have been injured, and that will actually reflect in the incident for the health and safety agent to see. And then our last update is within observations. There's now a new UI action at the top for closing the observation. And then we've made some updates to the field. So what has happened, and some of the fields have been reordered. And then again, this is really thinking about improving that experience for your employees, really making sure that it's easy to use. They will use it because it's easy to use. So we've just made some updates there, and we can go through those as well. All right, so our first feature that we're going to dive into is health and safety case management. And like I said, this is a purpose-built case management for health and safety teams. So empowering them with case types such as quick questions that might need answering to, all the way from long-term cases that need to be managed, like a leave case. These categories are configurable though. So if you have additional categories that you'd like to configure, you absolutely can do that during your implementation process. With our case management, it's going to provide that complete support for employees. If we're thinking about creating that culture of safety, making sure employees feel supported in their organization, this is one way that they can do that. So they always have a channel to communicate. And then with that channel, it's going to be that consistent channel, almost replacing email. You can report on it. You can see SLAs. You can have more efficient routing. So for your health and safety teams, it's really going to add that additional layer of efficiency when managing and responding to these types of cases. For our case management too, For those leave of absence cases, we've also included the ability to have an integration to HRSD journeys. So if you are an HRSD customer, reach out to your account executive for those specific licensing questions if you're really curious about how those can work together and your entitlements. Your AE is going to be the best person to ask about that. But from a product perspective, what we've done is if you do have HRSD within your instance, you would be able to create a HRSD case off of that injury record and really alert your HR teams at the same moment that you know of that injury and that leave process to work in collaboration together. So that's going to reduce time between coordinating between those teams, and make the process more efficient. We heard a lot of feedback that sometimes HR knows about the case, health and safety teams don't, or vice versa, and time is lost for that employee's transition and coming back to work. We want to make sure that we know the employee is supported through the entire process. They're not feeling that they're not being supported by the organization, but also that we're just having a more efficient process with the employees ready to come back and all the teams are ready to support them on that. And this case management experience is going to be available on Employee Center and now mobile. Again, we're always thinking about how do we meet your employees where they're working for those different types of employees. So it is going to be on our now mobile app as well as Employee Center. So now we're going to get into a solution demonstration here, and I will get my instance pulled up. And I will quickly log in. All right, so we're looking at our Employee Center here. And for those that aren't familiar with the Employee Center, this is our unified portal for any type of employee-facing products. So if you have additional ServiceNow products, say workplace service delivery, HR service delivery, your employees would log into one consistent portal and see the services that are available to them. We have our health and safety taxonomy here. And so for our employees, they can navigate here and see all of the resources that are available to them that their organization has made available to them. So we can see our products that we've released in the past, things like health and safety incident management, observations, job safety analysis. And now we have Ask a Health and Safety Question. One of the things that we really considered when building health and safety case management is thinking, how do we differentiate between an incident, an observation, and a question? Again, we want to make sure that employees are finding this easy to use. They know exactly where to go, and that this area is not collecting incidents. Because if you are very familiar with the incident and the investigation process, there are things that need to take place. Investigations, root cause analysis, corrective and preventative actions. So we want to make sure in the sense of efficiency that employees are not submitting incidents here. If they do, then we can create an incident, but we want to make sure that this is really just being used for those questions so they know this is where I ask questions about anything health and safety related. It's going to default to being requested for me, but if they wanted to request on behalf of someone, maybe it's a manager, we can choose from this drop down here, and that's going to pull from our SIS user list. And then we can choose our category. So we'll say injury and incident related leave. And if I choose injury and incident related leave, and I've submitted an incident in the past, I'll be able to relate that incident here. And this is only going to choose from my own incidents. It's not going to give everyone in the organization's incidents. And we'll say leave question. If I was injured on 10, we'll say that was 10/10 hasn't happened, so we'll say 8/10 and need to take another leave for surgery. I can add any attachments here if I wanted to add any documentation, maybe like a medical note from my doctor, maybe pictures. I can attach that all here. And then I will submit that off, and this will go to the health and safety team. So we're now going to switch gears and we're going to look at our health and safety workspace. And again, it's logged me out, so we'll just log back in. And we're going to look at the perspective of a health and safety caseworker. So if we're looking at our workspace here, we are looking at the health and safety workspace, and this is our dedicated workspace for all of our applications. So we are always going to continuously add our new features and applications here. And one thing to call out that this is a scoped application. So the information we really take seriously about keeping it secure. So even though it's in the ServiceNow platform, it's scoped. So only those that have the roles to see this information can see this information. And that's really important about compliance, as well as just security of things like medical information and PII. We've added here our new case icon. And so we can navigate over to cases. We can see the ones that have been assigned to me, as well as all cases. We can filter through this as well. And if we open up our case here, we can see the information that has been submitted. Some things to call out here. Again, there's routing that can be set up. So if you don't want your caseworker who's dealing with return to work cases to be working on general inquiries, routing can be set up to really improve that experience of the person answering those cases. So we'll open up our case. And we are able to see the information of who has requested this case, the short description. We can assign it to different people, as well as if it's a return to work case or not. So if it is not a return to work case, you can see the leave of absence or the leave information and the injury and illness tabs disappear. And if it is a case, then they can actually start collecting that information. We have our out-of-the-box categories here, like I said. And if we scroll down, we also can see return to work details. So for those return to work injuries, we need to track key information like expected return date, are their medical clearance received, as well as any accommodations and work restrictions. So this is really going to be that case for your health and safety teams to maintain that leave and all of the information about that leave. So any documentation, any communications with the employee, if we need to communicate back to the employee here, we're able to have that communication thread here. Additionally, we can add any leaves. So if we wanted to track how many leaves the employee has been taking, the reason for their leaves, you can add multiple leaves on this one return to work case, because as we know, there might be more than one leave per that initial injury. I'll quickly go into our injury record as well. And so now we're looking at our health and safety injury record. So this is created off of the incident. One thing that we've added here is the ability to create a return to work case. So either the user can come in here, create a case from that list view, or in the process of their work, they're able to create that return to work case. Now, like I said, if you have HR service delivery, this actually would appear to say create HR case. So it's flexible. You're able to use HR service delivery with this, but if you are not licensed to HR service delivery, we still wanted to provide the ability to maintain those leave of absence cases. So once we create the return to work case, it will link it here. And so if we click that, it would link it here, and we can open that record. And it would actually link that injury and illness here. So again, giving you that complete view of what the injury is, how has it occurred, and allowing that team to pick up on that leave of absence process and that return to work case. All right, so that was our demo of case management. Again, if you have any questions about case management and how that process works, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we can answer them at the end. We're next going to walk through our new feature of offline inspections. So within offline inspections, we delivered inspections and the ability to create those inspections within our last release, so our May release. And if you want to know more information about that, we do have a webinar very similar to this, as well as our community blog posts and our docs pages. But what we did in this release is actually enable it to now be available offline. The reason being that many employees that are conducting these inspections are working in areas that might not always have service. Maybe they're out in the field, they're at a remote location, and they're checking, a work site, or they're in the basement, and there's poor service in the basement where they're doing the safety inspection. So we wanted to make sure that meeting employees where they were, they can perform these inspections either on their mobile device, online, or offline. So what this means is scheduled inspections. So these are for those inspections that are either assigned or scheduled, will be downloaded to the mobile app at point of creation. So if the employee gets this inspection assigned to them, it will get cached onto the phone and downloaded when it's been assigned. And the employee then can complete offline until a new internet connection is established. So it will get sent to an outbox, and when they return online to get Wi-Fi, it will submit, and then it will automatically sync, so they don't have to go back in and verify that the inspection has been submitted. One thing to note is this is available on our Agent mobile app. That is where the offline functionality lives. So if you want to play with it or test it, it is on the Agent mobile app. So I'll now go through a demo, and I need to reshare my phone. So let me share that. Move it over here. All right, so we're now looking at our Agent mobile app. And as we log in, our user here can see under My Actions any assessments and surveys that have been assigned to them. So we can see at the top that we are offline. For employees, they would be able to toggle into the offline or online mode. If they're in an area of no service, I have service. I'm sitting in my apartment right now. I have Wi-Fi, I have service. If we went on airplane mode, it would do the same thing. It would just automatically switch you into offline mode. But for this purpose of this demo, I've put us into offline mode. So we just need to make sure that it has been downloaded, and we can see our survey here. So we'll say ready to take. And we would be able to complete this inspection and walk through it. Once we've completed this inspection, it will then go to this outbox to submit. So just wanted to show that we do now have offline capability for our field workers or for anyone that's working in areas of no connectivity. All right, so we'll now go back to our PowerPoint, and we'll cover job tasks for JSAs. So our third feature that I wanted to cover today is our job tasks for within JSAs. And what we've done is now given our health and safety teams the ability to maintain a job register of all jobs that employees are completing in their day-to-day. And these can be used in a variety of places. We can use these within our risk assessment feature. We can use these within job safety analysis, which we'll take a look at today. And then some other areas on our roadmap will really be enhancing off of these features here. So the goal of this is to reduce job-based risk and inform employees of hazards and controls at every step of their job tasks. So this is just going to be essentially that register of all jobs, and you can associate hazards and controls with those. So we'll actually look at how to create one of these, and then we'll also look at some of the updates to JSAs with this as well and how they're being incorporated. We've also now allowed employees to copy JSAs, edit for any changes, and add any additional hazards that are present in the field. So this is a bit of a two-part. So one, the job register, but then also some updates within JSAs. And all of this is going to be available on Employee Center and Now Mobile for those JSAs. So if we go back into our instance here, we'll first start off by looking at this new job register. So if you were familiar with this area before, we've renamed job templates to job register, and that's going to enable us to create essentially a system of record for all of the jobs. We can select new here, and we have the ability to do a multi-step or a single-step job. It depends on your process and how you would like to maintain these jobs. If you wanted to have a multi-step one and say group a bunch of steps together, say we're going to be welding today, or welding something, maybe welding copper wire, and we wanted to have all of the jobs that are associated with that process, or we could just do a single step one and say it's using a specific tool. We'll do multi-step here. And we can select the name. So we'll just say name, just say job type. We can choose a location. We can add any short description. We'll save this off. And once we save this, we can then start adding our job steps. So we can add as many job steps as we need. Maybe the job only has 2 steps all the way to more than 2, I guess. And we can go job step 1, a short description. We need to put it in the order. And essentially that's just what's the order of the jobs. We'll just say 1, and we can also do job location here. And then once we save off our job step, that's when we can start associating our hazards and controls. So if you remember, our hazards and controls are going to be coming from our list of hazards and controls within our configuration area. And so you first would need to maintain and upload your list here. But then once you have that as your source of record for your hazards and controls, you then can start adding them to each of the job steps. So the relationship of this is going to be, you can select here. The relationship of this is going to be one hazard to multiple controls. And so we'll say forklift. We can do different controls here. We can delete them if we need, and we'll save this off. So this is going to create this relationship where we have our one hazard, our multiple control measures, the details of the job, and then each of our steps here. And again, if we put a short description in here, we can see that. And then if the job has any document links that we wanted to provide to the employee for when they're looking at the job as they're doing their JSAs, we can do a link out to the documentation. All right, so we're now going to switch and look at JSAs within the Employee Center. And I'm going to quickly switch roles here just to make sure that we can see the right experience. All right, so we're now going to be looking at our JSA reporter roles. Again, having the correct role is important for doing anything within health and safety. And so we have our job safety analysis here. And so the goal of this is really to enable the employee as they're doing their work and performing their work before they start their work to be aware of the hazards and the controls that are present while doing this piece of work. So we can select our job location, like Alabama, the name of our JSA, we'll just say JSA test. We can select our job here. So this is the one that we just created, but we'll use our test data here to give a little bit more information. And if there was not a job that they saw on this list, say it's not there, it hasn't been created, they also can create one from scratch as well. And approval process can be set up for your teams to actually see those new jobs that are being added by employees. It's not going to add it to the register just yet. You can set up approvals for that. So we'll go job type, job start date. We'll say, we'll be proactive and we'll say today, tomorrow. And then we'll say it's going to expire at the end of the month. And because the job, when it was created, has already been created as a multi-step, it's going to be read only. But if they were selecting from this none category, they can choose if it's single or multiple steps. So then we would see our jobs here that we just added. If we switch to this one, we can see multi jobs as well. And if the employee is going through their JSA and they're missing a job step 3, we can go through that same process of adding hazards, adding controls, and seeing all of those there to add for our job step. Next, we can add any employees or workers being maybe someone external to the organization, perhaps a contractor, or someone who's just not in our sysuser table here. So we have the employees pulling from sysuser, or we can just type in workers. And I will just say Juniper and Russell. And as we put in this worker here, they're going to need to acknowledge that they understand the job safety analysis. So we can have our worker acknowledging that, and let's add our employee here also as well. Finally, we can add any additional remarks, submit any attachments as needed, and submit our JSA. Oops, I missed something. I did. Got to make sure that we have some hazards and controls here. So again, making sure everything is filled out and submitting that. So now when we look back at View My JSAs, we can see any of the JSAs they've previously submitted, when they've been created, the details of the JSA, as well as who else has been informed of completing this JSA. If our employee comes back at another time, they need to copy the JSA. Perhaps they're doing the same job again, but they still need to go through, add some key information like the name of it, the job start date and time, the location, and the workers. We wanted to give them some flexibility to, and some ease of use to copy it. A lot of feedback was taken for employees that are just doing this on paper. We don't want to add additional hurdles that don't lead to adoption of this. So we've added some features like being able to quickly copy it for them so they can almost have a living, breathing JSA, but still update it to be relevant to that JSA that they're performing at that moment. All right, so we saw job tasks within job safety analysis. We saw how they can copy them, the updates to our job register, as well as the ability to have step jobs. All right, we'll now cover some additional features. And the one I wanted to highlight in our demo today is updates to the body picker. So we'll go through the 2 key updates, one of which was updating just the UI of our body picker here. So now we can see that he or she is a bit more granular with their parts. And then they have some color coding now, and we'll cover that. I'll walk through that in a demo. And then we also have made this available on the Employee Center. So if we go back to our Employee Center here, end our impersonation, and we'll go to our advanced incident reporting. If we add an injury, so say, yes, there is an injured person, select our injured people, we now can see that our employee, when they're submitting a health and safety incident, can select from the body parts. And so we've kept some of the body parts that were there before, and we've added additional ones. At the end of our presentation today, we'll share out the blog post, and that actually we've detailed the mapping and what new body parts have been added. So if you're very curious about what exactly have we added, we have logged that all for you to see. So we can just say a bruise. And our employee would be able to add multiple body parts here. Say another bruise, we'll say severe. And if we have multiple body parts on the same portion of the body, so like the head, for example, and we had another, this one's minor, our body parts are all bruises today, you can see that it's going to take the color of the most severe injury on that portion of the body. So next we'll go into Workspace again. We'll open our injury actually. And as you can see, our body picker also has been updated here. And then last, I did want to show the updates to incidents. So if we go to our actions, we go to our actions list here, we open up an action. We have now the ability to copy the actions here. So it will copy it. It will do a copy in the short description, so you can delete that if needed, and then you can reassign it to anyone in the organization, different locations, select the different type, but it will copy over all of the short description as well as the description. All right, so that is everything to learn about our August release. If you are curious to know more in depth about what we've released, we do have our blog post. So on our health and safety community blog, every quarter we release a blog to cover exactly what we've released. So if you want to go through and look at screenshots, it has the roles, it will have the table names. We have this documentation here, so please check it out. And then we have this time to cover any Q&A. So anything that you've